Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Bearded Ford Tech. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. Today we are doing the 10,000 mile oil change, and we're going to send it off to Speed Diagnostics. Really cool kit that he'll send you. Put your sample in the cup and drop it in the mail and send it off to him. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, you can see right here on my dash, oil change required. I've got 66,797 and it says 34 right there because I was supposed to do this the other day. I had a family emergency and it hit 10,000 and rolled over. So there's actually 10,034 miles on it. You can see it right here that it was due on May 2nd at 61,000 miles. So let's go ahead and pop the hood. Actually, you know what? How many hours was on this trip? 290 hours. And let's go look at the oil life. Settings. Truck info. Oil life reset. It's at 0%. We're going to hold it. We're going to reset it now because we're about to change the oil. And now we're back to 100. So let's get into it. Ooh, hot. Engine's up to temp. We'll take that bad boy off of there. And we are using the AMSOIL XL extended motor oil. And this says it's good for up to 20,000 miles. This has 10,000 miles on it. That formula is what's in here now from the last time I changed the oil. The previous one said it was good for 12,000 miles. That was the 4,000 mile oil change. And then I did 7,250 something, and that I'll put that video up here in the card somewhere. But that is the blend that we're having now, the 20,000 mile oil. That's what's coming out. That's what we're sending off to get tested. And I do believe the lift is already set. Yep, lift is set. Go ahead and raise it up and check it. Good there. Good back there. Let's go to the other side. Good there. And we're good back there. So let's get this up in the air. I really need to call my detail guy so he can come clean this thing. All right, 15 mil drain plug right there. Oil filter is right there. And I did use the same Motorcraft oil filter through all of this testing, but we are going to be replacing that with the AMSOIL filter. It's the EA15K 51. So if you use the Motorcraft 910 filter, that's going to be the one that you need, the EA 15K 51 AMSOIL filter is what you'll need. So let's get you guys set up here underneath the pan, and we are going to collect a sample. 15 mil wrench. Let me get my sample out of the sample container out of the bag. Got it right here. So I'm going to let it run for about 3 seconds and then collect the sample. See if I can do this without spilling oil all over my camera. And 1, 2, 3. Got it. Wasn't exactly 3 seconds, but it was close enough. That oil actually doesn't look that bad. It looks like it's doing its job. So remember, this has 10,034 miles on it. And it does not smell like fuel. Does not smell like fuel. That's good that it doesn't smell like fuel. Y'all see that? See the oil? That doesn't look too bad. Like, looks just like it's doing its job. And no, there's no crush washer. Somebody hounded me. I didn't replace the crush washer. There's a rubber gasket in there. There's no crush washer. So I don't know why they were hounding me. But if it had a crush washer, I would replace it. Let that little drippy dry for a minute. Then we'll get my wheel off so we can change the oil filter. But there's the sample. It says fill to that line, but it's actually a little bit above it. But scan me for directions. Anyway, I'll get that in there. We'll put it in this box and we'll drop it in the mail and it'll go to the lab. All right, drain plug is in. That's it, tight, good to go. All right, let me wipe this down. Now, let me get my tire off. 19 mil. And then I'm gonna need a Phillips screwdriver so I can take that wheel liner out of there. That wheel liner. Because the oil filter is right back behind there. So I'll see if I can move you guys a little bit closer. Let me get these screws out of here. Usually I just take them from here and then kind of fold it over. Oh, the oil filter's right there. I pointed up too high, I'm sorry. And I really don't like these screw type, man. They suck. I may just replace them with pop rivets. See, they're screws. You're supposed to unscrew them so you can get them out. They never work right. You gotta hold your finger on it. And you can't put any pressure on it, because then you're just pushing it back in. There's always that one. Get a nub. Nubby. Or I could turn the wheel. See if that works. Probably not. Yeah, it just made it worse. You know what? I ain't unscrew it. Screw it. Screw it. That one I may have to. This. All right, so I should be able to just take that and fold it over. Like that. The oil filter right there. And then it's got a little trough and it'll run down there. See if I can move you guys over here. Sorry, my control arm's probably in your way. That one's a little tight. And I lubed that one. So why is it so tight? Huh? Can you guys explain to me why it's so tight if I lubed it? And I hate these claw type. They don't work. So I got the JM3 oil filter wrench in there. Let's see if I can get it with that. Look at there. Still tight, but reset it. Might be using the wrong one. Oh yeah, I'm using the wrong size flute. Are you the right size? Where'd my right size one go? Screw it. Still broke it free with the JM3. If I had the right size, see how this has got these double flutes on here? Plus I had it backwards. I'm an idiot. It's hot, don't judge. And the oil comes out down here. Down there. You probably couldn't see the flukes that I was talking about because my control arm's in the way. Oh, just dump it on the floor. Just trying to show you guys what color it was. That backfired. Clean that off. I'm gonna get my other filter and lube it. I want you guys to see what I'm doing so you don't say, oh, he didn't lube the oil filter. Hi, how you doing? And I'll even take my glove off. See it? It's lubed. Lubed. I did that last time. For some reason it was still stuck, but the JM3 got it loose. And almost a full turn. Ah, there we go. What does that say? You know what we need right here? Brake cleaner. To go through this trough. But it'll be fine because I don't feel like walking across the shop to get it. Seriously? It's hard to do this with one hand. Yeah. Yeah, damn. And I dropped one just a second ago. I got another one. Oh, I found it. And I think there's one more that I might be missing, but I'll find it. El funnel. Then here's the quart that I had that I dipped my finger in. And then we're going to do 5.2 more after this. And so remember, the whole point of doing this is testing this stuff 2, 3, 4, and to see if you can go as far as AMSOIL says you can go. And I have no doubt that you can, but it's fun looking at the testing to see what's going on inside the engine, how much additive package is actually left in the oil. So if you guys want to get your oil testing done, head on over to speeddiagnostics.com. I'll leave a link down in the description. If you want some AMSOIL, I'll leave a link down in the description as well. And we're going to get Lake Speed to go over my oil analysis whenever it comes back. And hopefully it'll be back by the time we get done pouring this oil in here with the power of video editing. That would be entirely possible. This makes number 4. Number 4. And obviously the filter is sideways, so I can't pre-fill it. I have to flood mode it. Number 5. Gold, baby, liquid gold, engine. All right, so the camera got hot there for a minute. I got the cap on it. I got all 6 oils in. I'm gonna flood mode it right quick. And that's throttle pedal to the floor, cranking the engine. Let off the throttle. Anyway, that's that. So now, Lake Speed, what do you got to say about my oil results? Hey guys, welcome back. I have Lake Speed with me. Lake, how are my results looking?
Man,
10,000 miles.
I know it's 10,000 miles, because that's one thing. But there are some really cool little tidbits in here that I think are going to be kind of fun to unpack real quick. Okay. So just so everybody knows, go ahead and explain what the oil is. Let me pull this thing up here real quick so everybody can see the results. Explain what new means in this first column, because you mentioned that this isn't the exact same oil as before.
Correct. The oil that was before was good for the 12,000 miles. This is their new blend, AMSOIL 5W30 XL series, that's good for 20,000 miles. Okay. So that's what this is, and that's what's in the truck now. So the previous sample that we did before was the 12,000 mile formula that they had.
All right.
That's the difference.
Made it 7,000 miles and was still looking good. And so we can go further. Now we're going over 10,000 miles with the one that can go over 20. Okay.
Over 20.
All right. So, and you were using the auto start stop the entire time.
I never turned it off. I let the truck do what it's going to do. If it shut off, it shut off. If it didn't, it didn't. I didn't touch anything.
All right. So now that we got that kind of established, we'll just do what we normally do. Let's hop right in. And the very first thing we want to look at is the viscosity. And we see that the viscosity is actually increased here compared to the other samples where before we were seeing some of that shearing, some of that breaking down a little bit, fuel dilution there. I mean, the fuel dilution now is at, just barely over 1%, which is still nothing. That's still super low, especially for, 10,000 miles.
Question on that.
Yeah.
Could that be because when I went to go service this, it had been sitting out in the parking lot at work all day. I did it towards the end of work, kind of in a hurry. I started it up, let it run for 2, 3, 4 minutes, pulled it around inside the shop, let it run for another 5 minutes idling. Mm-hmm. Then I drained the oil.
Yeah.
So
that'll definitely make a difference. Like I know with my car, if I just go up there and crank it and drive it around to the driveway and put it up on the ramps and change the oil, I'm going to have high fuel dilution. If I take it for a 10-minute drive and bring it back, there won't be.
That's normally what I do. I'll drive it for 10, 15, 20 minutes before I change the oil. But being on such a time crunch on the day that I changed the oil, I pulled it in and then drained the oil and left. So
yeah, that's one reason why I don't sweat the small numbers here. Mm-hmm. Is if it's under 2%, then it's good. I'm not worried about it.
So my question, that could be where that fuel dilution came from, correct?
It could be, yeah.
Okay.
But okay, so here's the first little nugget that came out of this. We said this before, that oxidation is the chemical degradation of the oil, but it is not linear, right? That's one thing that's really key to understand, is that viscosity isn't just, or oxidation isn't just this thing that just, as the oil ages, it just keeps on going up and up and up in a straight line. It's more like a hockey stick. It's going to go along, go along, go along, and then take off. And you can really see that here in these results, right? When we pop this up again and look at it, the very first sample going back over here was at 15. Then it went to 15.8, 17.8. That's pretty much that flat line. But now going that extra 2,500 miles, it's now jumped from 17 to 25. Now it hasn't gone too far yet, which is, why I wanted to have this little bit of discussion with you, is like, okay, you are now seeing more of that increase in oxidation. So that's something to keep in mind, that how much further do you want to go? If you go all the way to the point where the oxidation values shot upwards, of 35 to 40, where we can normally say, okay, oil is dead when it hits that 35 to 40 range. But the problem is, when you get to that point, you've now created insolubles. There's enough chemical degradation. There's these other byproducts that have been forming to reach that level, that now you could be having some sludge, some other varnish buildup going on in the engine. So I wouldn't recommend taking it all the way to the breaking point, if you will, and then backing up the next time. My advice always is kind of creep towards that point and then stop before you ever get there, because it's kind of hard to get that stuff out and take it off once those parts are already there, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to go from 10,000 miles and then straight to 20 like it says on the bottle. I wouldn't condone anybody to do that.
No,
but,
no, I would be hesitant to say go more than 12, right? Based on this, I'd say, give 12,000 a try and let's see what it does, because it would be interesting to see, does it change more than that 7 absorbance units that we see, that it went from basically 18 to 25? Does that extra 2,000 miles, are we going to see that same rate of increase, or is it going to be higher? That could be pretty interesting to look at, even with the new formula.
Right. So that's like I said, this is how I drive. This is for me. This is how I'm driving.
Right.
So
what you're
just
doing.
so everybody knows that.
Absolutely. That's always a great thing to remind everybody. Your results may vary. This is for you, what you're doing. So let's take a look at that new formula a little bit, and you can see it right off the bat here, right? But when you look at the previous columns versus this last column, you can see that the calcium level went down, the magnesium level went down, but the moly level went up. So it's definitely a little bit of a change in the additive package there. So calcium and the magnesium are detergents. So the detergent level went down a little bit on this formula, and they bumped up the moly, which means they probably have done some extra antioxidants in there as well. Some different acetylase chemistries to get that extended life, to go from, you said, 12,000 miles to now 25 or 20? What was the number again?
20.
20. Okay. Yeah. So to go from 12 to 20, pushing that up, they've done that, not by just putting more detergent in there to neutralize acids, which I'm proud of them for that. That's really great, is that you're not going the traditional, just base it off TBN route. They're going differently with the oxidation route instead, which is cool to see. So it'll be interesting to see for you with what you're doing, how far this can go. But you can definitely see the difference right there. Now, the other little thing that jumped out is that manganese. Before we get to the wear metals, I just want to jump on the manganese real quick. And I sent you a note. Hey, you using a fuel additive? What did you say?
You called. Yeah, I did. Right before I did the oil change.
Yeah. And that's where it came from. Yeah, it catches it. I love it when it can pull those little things out like that no one's expecting. Like, between the fuel additive hitting the manganese, the fuel additive also too could be part of that little again, it's slight increase in fuel dilution as well, because the fuel additives will always be in a carrier solution that
Okay.
as it's heavier than gasoline. And so those heavy ends are what really show up as fuel dilution. Yeah, like if you put diesel in a gasoline engine, it would show up as fuel dilution. A lot of it would. So
And that happens quite a bit at work. Gas and diesel. Sorry.
I bet. All right. So now for the last little bit here, which is cool, is that all the way down to the very bottom, if we look at our wear rate per 1,000 miles, we're still holding strong right there at 2 parts per million, which is just excellent. I mean, this is so good. And what's awesome about these results are that we know that that's a real 2 parts per million. And let me explain what I mean by that being real. Oil analysis can only see particles that are smaller than 10 micron. Really, most methods can really see well particles that are about 5 microns or smaller. So what can happen is, especially when people are doing long drain interval stuff, if they're not doing steps in between, like you've been doing here, you can actually miss the peak in wear. And what I mean by that is, if you started off at a lower miles, let's say you went 3,000 miles, took a sample, then you went 6,000, and then you went 9,000, then you went 12,000. Every step, which if you could see that maybe the wear was going up, but then the wear went back down. Well, if you only took that one at the very end when the wear went back down, you would never have known that what really happened was the reason the wear went down is because the wear particles are now so large, the oil analysis can't see them.
Oh.
Yes, that can happen sometimes. The people can even say, I send in this oil and there's hardly any metal in it, but when I look at the used oil, it looks like metallic paint. Well, because your eye can see particles, 30 microns, 40 microns or bigger, but the oil analysis can't see that.
How come the oil analysis can't see the bigger particles?
You can't see them. No, we're actually working right now with a company that has a device that will be able to tell us all the particles, regardless of size, that are ferrous. So they're anything magnetic, right? So it's going to be using a magnetic type device. We're going to be able to measure all of the ferrous metals in the oil, regardless of particle size. Really, I say regardless. What it's really going to do, it's going to be able to give you the number for the stuff that's larger than 5 microns. Because when it's smaller than that, it's going to be hard for that to really read it well because they're so small. But the stuff bigger than that, it can see. But the regular oil analysis can see the stuff smaller than that. So we'll be able to put the two of them together and have a much clearer picture of what's going on. I actually have a prototype of the device right now here. We've been playing with it, and I'm actually going to be getting some results back tomorrow where we can kind of start putting together these pictures and understanding it better. But that's what's really cool about your results is that we have that 5,000 mile sample, a 6,000 mile sample, a 7,000 mile sample, a 10,000 mile sample. And we know by looking at the total amount of iron right here, let's pull that back up again. When you look at that total amount of iron and all the other wear metals, we can know that, okay, we're not fooling ourselves here. There wasn't a peak earlier that then dropped and we're just, arranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, just ignoring the disaster that's impending. That's not the case here at all. You have a solid 2 parts per million wear rate, which is fantastic. And now you know that you have some confidence. There's still some room left in the oxidation value. Your wear rate's looking good. You can confidently extend that drain interval a little bit more and see how much more value you can get out of the money for the oil and the time it takes to do that oil change. You can really see that. So these are super cool, man. Thank you so much for doing all this and letting us be a part of this because this is cool stuff.
This is I started doing this because everybody's there's sticklers out there, and that's fine. If they want to change their oil at 3,000 miles, fine.
Go for it.
5,000, fine, whatever. And they're all like, you're going to need a new engine in 10,000 miles. Like, seriously? Like, I've been sending my oil off. Apparently, some people haven't been following up. But that's why I started doing this when I first talked to you. What was it, the 4,000 mile oil change? Bring that back up for a second, if you don't mind. So the wear metals on the very first one was 4, and then it went to 10, then 7, then 11.
Yeah.
And people are like, you can't go 10,000 miles on an oil change. Your engine's going to be sludged. You're going to need a new engine. But these results right here are saying something totally different.
Right.
Correct.
I get the question every single day. You know, when should I change my oil? What oil should I use? When should I change it? And the reality is, I can't tell you. I'm a crystal ball.
Test can.
Yeah, absolutely. The test can tell you exactly, because no different than we're looking at your sample right here, and you're at 10,000 miles and your stuff looks really good. Just yesterday, I was looking at a sample from 10,000 miles that looked really bad. But I've also seen 2,000 mile samples that looked horrible this week. Just the stuff this week, I can tell you that just because it's a short duration doesn't mean it's good. Just because it's a long duration doesn't mean it's bad.
And that's what I'm trying to tell people. I'm not telling them to go 10,000 miles. I'm not telling them to go 3 or 5. I'm telling them to get an oil sample done so they know how long they can go. And a good person that took my advice, Power Stroke Maintenance, you did a video with him. He was like, man, I'm doing 5,000 miles a week. I need to get this tested. I could be wasting money.
Yeah.
And he saw my original video with the start stop when I did this oil analysis, when I told you I used it halfway and then I didn't use it the other half of it.
Right.
This time I didn't mess with it at all. And that blew his mind. So question, because I know people are going to comment, is auto start stop ruining my engine?
The oil analysis says no. It's that fact, man. It's like the data says no. We can have all the opinions we want. The data says, nah, looking good, man.
It's looking good. Because everybody was saying, I get it. I get what they're saying. Oh, all the oil drains back into the pan. There's nothing left in the journals. It's not off long enough for it to do that.
Right.
All the oil's not going to drain back into the pan. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. It's easy for people to get in their heads and theorize out all of these doomsday scenarios. Meanwhile, your engine says, oh, I didn't know that. And it just keeps on going.
Right.
And it does what it's supposed to do. Because I'd rather rely on data than someone else's opinion or their speculation on it. I have no time for that. It's too easy in our world today to get real data, to get a OBD2 reader, plug in a scanner and get data, to get oil analysis done. If you just want to follow your prescription of 3,000 miles and do that, you can go for it. No one's telling you you need to do anything different.
And that's what I tell them. I'm like, at least get an oil sample. You may be throwing money out the window or down the drain. Right. You may be able to go further. You may not be able to. And as far as the start stop goes, it's not ruining my engine. It's just fine. Yeah. But this is me and my engine. I'm not saying it's where we live. Me and you live in the same climate. We're in the same state for how I drive. It may not work for somebody in California or Nevada or something like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The guy in South Florida versus the guy in Alaska are going to have completely different environmental impact. What's a cold start in Alaska is really different than a cold start in South Florida. There is no such thing as the cold start in South Florida. It doesn't even exist, right? But, in Anchorage, Alaska, you better believe there's some real cold starts up there. And then the fuel is different.
It's true. Yeah, it is.
And so there's all these variations that come into play that people don't realize are variations. And the whole thing is, and you've heard me say this before, if you just want to change your oil every 3,000 miles, that's like the C's get degrees. You will pass the class just putting in good oil and good quality filter and just change everything up. Yes, you will pass the class. if you want to be valedictorian, if you want to be at the head of the class, you're going to have to do more work. You're going to need to do oil analysis. You're going to need to collect data and then use that data to get to the head of the class.
And I got a pretty good trend analysis going here.
You
You
That's
can
pretty,
literally,
man. It's pretty.
you can literally see like what you're talking about, where it started like the hockey stick, where it starts to go up.
Mm-hmm.
So 10,000 miles is pushing it for how I drive.
Yeah, for how you drive. I can't wait till you get to the 12,000 mile sample, and let's take a look at it and see what it says, because I suspect it'll shoot up a little bit more. But then again, there's always residual in the system. So maybe this second full fill of the new formula, it could either hold or even drop back, depending upon how much residual is left in the system. You just don't know until that new oil really gets its chance to show what it's capable of. But that's why we have data. That's why we do oil analysis, so you can get the data so you can know and not have to guess.
Now the calcium and stuff was that number low because it's using it and that's how much is left, or
calcium usually isn't consumed. Phosphorus can be consumed, but calcium normally doesn't get consumed. That's interesting. Now, I'll say this. If it drops more, then we can know that that actually is calcium being consumed, we'll call it, by reacting with acids, that the acid numbers shooting up and it's reacting with it. But even when I've seen aged samples before, you don't normally see the calcium drop just because the acid level goes up.
So they put more moly and more zinc in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? More moly, more zinc.
Yeah. Really more moly than anything else.
Yeah.
Because moly is not just a friction modifier, it's also a secondary antioxidant. So it will extend the working life of the oil as well. And
I like how it's still, my total wear per 1,000 miles is still 2, like you said.
That's fantastic.
It was at 2, then 4, then 2, then 2. It stayed at 2.
Yeah. Now these are great. This is a nice, clean bill of health. Like I said, there's lots of little things you can pick up from this. So this is really great information. Hopefully people who are watching can really get a lot from this, because this is the textbook of what you want to do. This is how you do it. Right? You want to know how to put used oil analysis to work for you to get your money's worth. You do this. This is how you do it and how you make it work for you.
And I kept it the same, as close to the same as I could. I used the same kind of filter, the same kind of oil until they changed the formula.
You can't help that.
Caught me. Yep, you caught me on using the fuel injector, fuel system cleaner. You caught that.
That's awesome. That means at some point, someone either ran an octane booster in there, or back during the COVID era, when the refineries were putting out all the fuel they could put out because of how many that were shut down. That's the whole thing people know, right? So during COVID, when everything dropped, they shut down a lot of refineries. Well, then when things came back, they didn't reopen a lot of them. So the ones that reopened or that were still running that never shut down, they were maxed out capacity. So what happened was the EPA kind of gave the guys a pass and said, we're going to look the other way, and y'all can put in some manganese and some stuff in the fuel to get the octane back up. That way you could make more gasoline. They actually let them put in over 10% ethanol.
Even though it says 10% on the pump?
Even though it says 10% on the pump, it was actually over 10. They did waivers 2 summers. For 2 straight summers, there were waivers that let them put more ethanol in. And they were all buying manganese, MMT, which is an octane booster. So that could be residual that was just in the system. And you put in the fuel system cleaner, and it pulled that manganese deposit out of wherever corner it was hiding in, and that's why it showed up. It may not have actually been in the additive. It could have just been hanging out in the fuel system, and it just got cleaned out and shows up in there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But it's nothing to be concerned about,
Oh,
right?
no, not at all. It's just there, right? Because normal fuel, like, it's not there before. So wait, now it shows up. What happened? Where did that come from? Now you know.
I like it.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Well, Lake, thank you for going over my report with me. And that's why I've been doing this, because it's been really cool to see what's been going on inside my engine, how far I can push this. I'm not going to push it to the point of sludge. You know that.
Yeah.
But I just got tired of all the comments like, you can't do this, you can't do that. You have to do this, you have to do that. Well, my oil analysis says different. So, and if it can help somebody save money where they can visit you at speeddiagnostics.com, order an oil analysis kit, send it in, and you'll get a report just like me. It may not look just like mine, but he'll explain it to you and what's going on in your engine. So, you have anything to say, Lake?
No, man, I thank you for letting me have the opportunity to be involved in this. This is fun stuff. I love being able to give back value, right? That we can take this, not just take the samples and give you back some data, but provide some value, and hopefully the viewers are watching, they can get some value out of this as well. Because it's something I believe in big time, right? Whether you're using Speed Diagnostics or using Caterpillar or Blackstone or whoever you're trying to use, that's fine. Just get some data and make your decisions based on data versus someone else's opinion, right? That's the key message here.
The data speaks facts.
Absolutely. And yours looks good. It's singing a pretty song.
Oh, I was going to ask you before we go. Blackstone uses TBN numbers.
Yeah.
And everybody keeps asking me, how come you don't use TBN numbers? Can you explain that real quick?
Sure. Because TBN is for strong acids. So TBN was developed for diesels back when we had high sulfur diesel. Well, we all know we don't have high sulfur diesel anymore. So TBN only responds to very strong acids. So the weak acids that are causing that slight increase in oxidation, it can't see. It won't show up. So that's why both Cummins and GM stopped using TBN over 10 years ago and only use oxidation. So like the GM oil life indicator, its algorithm was based on trying to predict hitting that oxidation number of 40 absorbance units based on them using real world samples from real engines, collecting actual data from those engines and correlating all together to create the oil life indicator, because they're not worried about TBN. What they're worried about is oxidation. So if it's good enough for Cummins and GM, it's good enough for me.
So once the oxidation hits about 40, you said 35 to 40?
35 to 40 is that window where you want to say that oil's dead.
So it's done at that point.
Yep.
Okay. Now, does that mean that all the additives have been used up and the viscosity is no good? Is that what we're saying? The oil's no good at that point?
Well,
or
the
it's just
viscosity
oxidized?
what will normally happen when you get around that range, the viscosity is going to start to increase.
Okay.
Because now you've got all these, free radicals and weird stuff going on. So chemically, the oil is really kind of starting to fall apart at that point. What we'll show in a future Motor Oil Geek video coming out probably early September, you're going to see that by that point, the additives are pretty much dead, or a lot of the additives, like the ZDP and stuff. Yeah, it's still showing that it's there, but it's basically inert. It's been used up by that point. So you're relying on other things in the engine and the oil and stuff that are keeping things going at that point. So you'd rather not do that. You'd rather make use of all the good additives, see the best protection, which is why looking at the wear rate is so important. Because if you're not looking at the wear rate, if you're just looking at TBN alone, it's really easy to go really too far and create all those sludged up engines and stuff like that. People say, you can't do that. You'll sludge your engine. Well, if you're just going off TBN alone with a low sulfur fuel, yeah, absolutely, you're going to do that. You could actually wear your engine out and kill it, because you could actually have a very high wear rate if you're only using one number from this data to make a decision. You should never only go off of one point of data in the oil analysis report. You got to take it all in. Big picture.
multiple points of data.
Right. You have all these different tests, and you can sometimes overlook one. Okay, you know what? Everything else is good. I can kind of put that to a side for a while, and let's see. What did the trend analysis tell me? That's how you really make these decisions, is by, there's some things, that those are hills you could die on, right? If your iron shoots through the roof, okay, hang on, what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
But overall, you just want to look at the big picture and make those decisions based on what that big picture is telling you. And you're going to usually end up in the right place by doing so.
So I'm going to push it to 12 this time, and I'm going to send you another sample. You said 12 would be good, right? For sampling. All right. So I'm going to push it to 12. I'll send it for another sample. So it'll probably be a few months. So
yeah, it's all right. Yeah, 12,000 miles you got to go. Yeah.
It's going to be a while. So, Lake, I appreciate it. As for everybody else, I hope you guys found this information very, very useful, and I encourage you to go get an oil analysis done from Mr. Lake Speed.